I have 8 numbers here. You pick 3 of them, and then whatever 3 questions you get, that's where we start.
Great.
What is your first number?
3.
I love Death's appreciation for the little things in life. So whether it's something that might be silly or meaningless to someone else out there, tell me one little thing in your life that makes you happy on a regular basis.
Really, really, really hot food. When food is served to me hot, like temperature hot. I love spicy food. When food is temperature hot, which sounds like everyone's like, yeah, it is. But I mean to the point where you're like, when you're eating it, that's a very small thing that makes me very happy.
All right, second number here.
7.
I am full-blown obsessed with looking at everyone's IMDb trivia page because it always has the most random facts about people. I think you only have one thing on your page, which is very disappointing.
Whoa.
If you could add something to that page, what would it be?
I would add that for 2 years in a row, I worked at a summer camp where I taught circus.
Circus?
Yes, I did. I taught flying trapeze, static trapeze, Spanish web, and some ground skills. I can juggle, but only three balls.
That is really cool, actually. I love that kind of stuff. I can juggle, but it lasts for like 10 seconds.
Yeah, same.
Falls.
It's none of the stuff. I don't practice this stuff anymore, so.
All right, you got one more pick here.
2.
If you could be on the game show of your choice, what show would you pick, and could you actually win it?
Oh, okay. I believe strongly that I could win it, but I say that with hesitation, but is it technically a game show? The Great British Bake Off?
No, that counts.
If not that one, if that doesn't quite count, then I would do Family Feud, but I would do it with like a chosen family.
Who is your chosen family?
Well, I have to choose it. I don't know when I would choose it, but just not exactly my family.
All right, here's what I'm gonna do with that. You can pick one cast member from Sandman to have on that chosen family team, but then I also wanna know who is the person you would least want on that team.
I would most want Tom, and I would least want Gwendolyn, because Gwendolyn thinks like in the most abstract, bizarre ways, which are beautiful to talk to. But on, Family Feud, it's very much like you have to go literally from A to B, and then there's always a wild card. They'll be like, name something everyone has in their purse. And I feel like Gwendolyn might be like, giraffe, and then we all lose. But it would be beautiful.
What's up, everyone? It's Collider Ladies Night time. This is actually, you don't even know this. This is the first in-person Collider Ladies Night in like two years.
Whoa.
I think one of the last ones was in February of 2020. Kirby Howell-Baptiste. Oh my God, I'm so excited to be sitting here doing this face-to-face with you of all people.
I'm so excited too. I'm honored that this is the first.
You studied in a formal setting, like at school, right?
I went to drama school for 2 whole semesters. Yes.
2 whole semesters. So you're
I completed two complete semesters.
You're cutting the whole program short, though. So what inspired the shift while you were in school to step out of it?
I went to drama school after having not 1 but 2 gap years. 1 is very common, 2 is rogue. But I did 2 gap years, and then after that time, I had been doing, just little things like I'd done background work, and which I would say to every actor, you should do background work. It's an incredible way to learn the inner workings of a set, not just as an actor, but you learn like lighting terms, and you learn, directorial cues and things like that you wouldn't really get a chance to learn if you weren't in that environment. And it's in such a kind of like low stakes, low pressure way. But I've been doing a bunch of different things, and then it just didn't fit for me. I think that's kind of like I think it's often difficult, like when you try to meet like creativity with institutions, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And I recognize that there are some skills that you really need to learn. Like if you're a painter, you do have to learn color theory and things like that. But I think we are still really rigid about the settings where we have to learn. And I think that is something I'm really grateful I learned early on, that I could carve my own path.
Speaking of school, though, in the 2 semesters you did spend, what is something you learned in that time period that proved invaluable, that you still find yourself using today? But then what is something that you learned on set, on the job, that all the schooling in the world never could have taught you?
Okay, so what I learned that was pretty invaluable was we had phonetics classes, and I really loved my phonetics teacher, actually. He was great. And that was helpful, even though in general, when I learn accents, it's a lot through mimicry. But sometimes if I can't lock into something, phonetics are helpful because you learn where language is played place in the mouth, and that can help you.
I'm having flashbacks to your Barry line.
Yeah, right. Barry was, oh my goodness, I drew so much on my own experiences of like random acting classes for Barry. There's so little of that show that's made up. And then what I've learned on the job, I mean, I could fill an encyclopedia with what you will learn on the job, things that you will never be taught in drama school. I mean, literally, even the phrase like back to one, like there's almost nothing that you learn in drama school. I think schools are changing now, but there's so little practical information and practical knowledge that you're given that you really are starting. I mean, someone tell actors like how to book a co-star even, like you don't get taught a lot.
I think about the practical stuff with any form of schooling. I just said to someone the other day, like, why couldn't college teach me like basic finance?
100%.
So I can know what I was doing when I grew up.
I don't know why I was doing like the math we were doing instead of learning taxes. Like that would be so helpful for me forever.
What I would give to go back and take those courses instead.
Tell me about it.
Those are some of your first professional gigs you booked. What is the first one that made you think to yourself, like, this project really well reflects what I want, I don't know, the industry to see me as? You don't want to box yourself in, but like, this project is something that creatively really speaks to me and I hope people take notice of it.
That was probably Barry, because Barry was so interesting start to finish, right? When we auditioned for Barry, and I say we as in the acting class, because we were all sort of smushed together and really did become an ensemble, but we all auditioned with dummy sides. We all had the sides that were from a scene that Sarah Goldberg's character, Sally, is part of.
Should have been nominated for an Emmy.
I mean, please,
Can't help it.
Preaching to the choir. One of Sarah Goldberg in Barry this season is one of the best performances that's ever been on TV, period. But we all auditioned with Sally sides, and that, when I say all, it was, Daryl, Ryder, Darcy, myself, obviously separately, but we all had the same dummy sides. Did the audition, and because it was an acting class in America, I had done an American accent. And Sherry Thomas, who is a fantastic casting director, also casting directors don't get enough love. They are artists. But Sherry, she often encourages you to sort of like play around, bring yourself to the role. And she said, let's do it one more time, just any way you want. And I said, still in the American accent, any way I want. And she said, any way you want. So I dropped the accent, speak in my real voice, which is this, FYI, and do the scene again. And she kind of looked at me and she was like, okay, don't change your hair. And I left, and then I got that role. And from the beginning, that was kind of the foot we started on. We were allowed to improvise. We all brought stories from acting classes. I mean, like, before we started shooting the first season, everyone who was in the acting class and Henry, we did acting exercises. Like, he was our acting teacher for like multiple rehearsals. So we were all so deeply saturated in that world, and we all got to revisit the sides of us that were like such scrappy actors trying to get our first role. And I felt like that was one of the first jobs that I'd ever been completely trusted in. Bill and Alec both were always like, do it. We've written these words, but try it your own way. And so I feel very, very proud of the work that we did on Barry.
To highlight some of the other wonderful actors you've worked with, try to get at it this way. Which actor that you've worked with was the one with the most similar process to yours, where the second you hit the set, you were like immediately in sync? But then can you name someone else who had a completely different approach to the work, where maybe you had to adapt to what they did, but it was adapting for the better?
I shadow directed on the last season of Barry, and I got to watch Sarah Goldberg's performance. This is also why I feel adamant about her being Emmy nominated, and just, it doesn't even have to be Emmy, but just like recognized for what she did. But I got to watch her perform in a way where I could really be submerged in it, because I didn't have to worry about my own lines, or, I wasn't reacting in the scene. And I went up and asked, because you're never done learning, and asked her, like, how did you do this and how do you prepare? Because she's really such a phenomenally tapped in actor. And she treats it like theater. She knows her lines, she's ready, she comes to play. I mean, you could say we're shooting this on film when you only have one chance, and Sarah will give it to you.
I love that so much. All right, I want the other half of the question now.
Oh, different approach. I'm trying to think who has a completely different approach than I.
Or maybe someone who used a technique that you were not aware of, something out of left field you don't see many actors use.
I'm trying to think if there's anything. I wish I had some like really kooky story where someone like, I don't know, brought a cucumber to set and that was the thing that locked them into a character.
Well, now you have that in your back
now
pocket.
I have that. Now I have that.
And
Now I could be that actor.
someone.
Yeah. I'll be like, I don't know why Kirby needs a cucumber to act. Yeah, that's it. I'll be the kook.
Okay,
I'll
I'll
be the
take
person
it.
who people-
I'll accept that answer. When you first got involved in the show, had you read the source material? Did you fully understand what you were jumping into?
I'd read American Gods and I thought it was absolutely incredible. I didn't know how anyone could process something like the sort of like migration of people and their religions and their traditions and how that could come to be in America in this melting pot. And so from that, I was sort of like, whatever he writes, I'm in. And then I found The Sandman and fell in love with that. Like, I thought it was absolutely incredible. And also how different each chapter is, right? Like, which I think is really beautiful because our show really honors that, like how different you can open it and you can read one part and you'll meet people and see worlds that you won't ever see again, or that they'll sort of in passing be part of another story. And I thought that was incredible, and I love death.
What were some of your top priorities or your goals going into it? And then how did those goals evolve as you started to film all those little pieces to it?
Speaking of treating TV like it's theater, Tom is also incredibly well prepared when he comes to set, and not just in terms of the lines, but in terms of his deep understanding of the character he was playing, of Morpheus. He was very tapped in, and that offered, I think for me, it gave me a freedom because there was no sort of insecurity or self-awareness. It was just sort of we were able to fully submerge because everyone was committed to the roles they were in. You were able to sort of, with no embarrassment, go as deep as you could go. And we had, huge, you see, like huge chunks of dialogue where we are literally just walking and talking, and it was like theater. Like on a lot of shows or even films, you might have like 2 pages of dialogue to learn for the next day, and it will be broken up or whatever it is. Like you can sometimes only get through 2.5 to 4 maybe pages in a day. We were getting through. We shot the episode that I shot in I think 2 weeks, so we got through a huge amount. Like we shot essentially like an hour in 2 weeks, but our takes were so long. We would just walk and talk, and you had to know everything. But it allowed you to be steeped in this role because we weren't cutting and breaking and sort of like dropping out of the emotion. We could just sustain it, and that was such a gift.
What was the biggest difference between your goals for the character when you went into that audition compared to how she turns out to be in the final show?
Well, my goal going into this audition was honestly just to be as to sort of bring to life as closely what I had seen in the comic, like as closely as possible. That was, it's very rare that you get a role and you have a cheat sheet, right? Like normally you get a role and you have to figure it all out and put all the pieces together. But I knew who Death was. I knew the kind of death that Neil wrote and how subversive she was, and so different to what I'd ever seen in pop culture. She's kind, she's careful, she takes her job seriously, and she's gentle. So that was my goal. What I think the way that was tweaked by Neil, both in that audition and on set, was the sibling relationship that Tom and I found very naturally. And I think that made things really easy. All of us, like the walking and the linking arms and the holding, like all of that just kind of came organically on set. And that was really surprising. But again, another thing that kind of helped us both sink into these characters, because Death is the only person who ever physically interacts with Dream in that way. Most people either despise him or they fear him. And she's like, it's my knucklehead little brother, so.
When she spends her time as immortal, that's where she comes to appreciate human beings and get this mentality of, they need someone there. They need a friend to lead them on to the next phase. But having seen everything that mankind does, why do you think she never gets rattled or thrown off course or kind of turned off given the horrible things mankind does?
Yeah, I think that, I think part of it is that she can see the not just the big, but the biggest picture. And I think that's what allows her to have such generosity with humanity. I think when you focus on the negative, what you're often focusing on is a small, loud minority, and it can become so loud that you can be tricked into believing it's the majority. The majority of people act this way. The majority of people are bad, and things like that. But it's when you focus on that. But if you really were to sort of zoom out, and I think that's the sort of benefit and the skill that Death has, is that she sees the macro, right? And so she can see everything. She zooms out and she recognizes that though this is happening over here, there's so much more beauty and joy that's happening over here. Plus, she's not just dealing with Earth, right? She talks about it. She's dealing with worlds and different realms, things like that.
It's hard not to think about that.
I know. And when you're, we as humans can only comprehend our small little existence. But if you had the ability to see everything all at once, then I think that you would be much more sort of, it's almost like, I don't know. I think I feel like it would be like this, like if aliens came, if there is there are higher beings with more intelligence than us. And it's almost like the way we look at our pets, where we're like, oh God, they did something naughty, but they don't know any different. I think that's the way you would look at it if you had the ability to see the full scope of what we're dealing with in our universe.
Is it safe to assume you'd want a cat episode as much as I do next season?
Do you know what's so funny is we had dinner last night, the whole cast had dinner, and Neil was there, and I showed him my cat, and him and Alan were like, do you think maybe we could put it? And I was like, yes, please put it, find a place for my cat to be in the show.
If they need a background cat, I have Deputy Dewey, and we will fly to wherever you want so he can be a background cat.
We could have a full cat cast of The Sandman. We could do like an endless, but in cats.
I will watch this in a heartbeat.
And I'll tell you this, I'm new to the cat family. I was never a cat person until I got this cat.
Were you a dog person before you were a cat person?
Somewhat. I was just sort of like, I like all animals, but I don't have any. I don't need it. I had a dog in the past and it passed away, and I'm okay. Now I have this cat. I'm like, oh my God, please, I hope you live forever. I don't know what I'll do when you're not around.
I have to congratulate you and tell everybody out there to check out The Sandman on Netflix. Congratulations. It was such a pleasure. First in-person ladies' night.